The radio telescope at Arecibo 2 picked up the signal at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Sarah Chen was halfway through her third cup of coffee when the computers started screaming. The sound wasn't literal screaming, of course. It was the automated alert system that kicked in whenever the array detected something that didn't match any known celestial phenomena. But to Sarah, who had been listening to the steady hum of cosmic background radiation for the past 6 hours, it might as well have been a banshee wailing in her ear. She nearly spilled her coffee as she lunged for the control panel. The main screen was flashing red, displaying waveforms that made her heart skip a beat. This wasn't a pulsar, it wasn't a quasar, it wasn't any kind of natural phenomenon she had ever seen. "Computer, isolate and enhance signal," she commanded. Her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The speakers crackled to life, and what emerged made Sarah's blood run cold. It was definitely artificial. More than that, it was structured. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, basic physics constants, the universal language that any spacefaring civilization would recognize. And underneath it all, something that sounded unmistakably like pleading. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for the secure phone. This was way above her pay grade. Within minutes, she was connected to Dr. Marcus Webb, the director of the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program. "Sarah, this better be good," Webb's gravelly voice came through the speaker. "I was in the middle of explaining to my wife why I missed dinner again. Dr. Webb, you need to get down here. Now." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "We've got contact." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like hours. When Webb finally spoke, his voice had lost all trace of annoyance. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't touch anything. Don't call anyone else. And Sarah, record everything." The next few hours passed in a blur. Webb arrived with a full team of cryptographers, linguists, and xenobiologists. The small radio telescope facility suddenly felt like mission control during a space launch. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's lead linguist, was the first to make real progress. She had been staring at the signal patterns for 3 straight hours when she suddenly sat up straight in her chair. "It's a distress call," she announced to the room. "The mathematical sequences are coordinates. The physics constants are being used to establish a baseline for communication. But the emotional undertones—" She paused, running her hands through her hair. "These beings are terrified." Webb leaned over her shoulder, studying the data. Terrified of what? That's what we need to figure out. Elena pulled up a new screen showing a 3-dimensional star map. "But I can tell you where they are. The coordinates point to a system about 47 light-years from here. 3 planets, 1 in the habitable zone." As if summoned by her words, Dr. James Morrison from the xenobiology team looked up from his own workstation. "I've been analyzing the signal's technical specifications. These people, or whatever they are, they're advanced. The signal is being broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously, with error correction algorithms that are frankly beautiful. But here's the scary part." He turned to face the room, his face pale. "The signal strength is decreasing, not because they're moving away from us, but because the transmission is getting weaker. Something is happening to their ability to maintain the broadcast." Webb felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do we have?" Morrison shrugged helplessly. "At the current rate of decay? Maybe 72 hours before we lose the signal entirely." The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of computers and the occasional crackle from the speakers. Everyone understood the implication. Somewhere out there, 47 light-years away, an entire civilization was crying out for help, and in less than 3 days, they would be silenced forever. Webb made a decision that would change the course of human history. "Get me the Secretary of Defense, then the Secretary of State, then the President." He turned to address the entire room. "People, we're about to make first contact, and from the sound of it, we're going to do it while someone is in desperate need of help. Within 6 hours, the facility was crawling with military personnel, government officials, and some of the brightest minds humanity had to offer. The story was tightly controlled. Only a handful of people knew what was really happening. General Patricia Hayes, the Secretary of Defense, stood in front of a hastily assembled war council. The main screen displayed the alien star system, with tactical overlays that would have looked familiar to any military strategist. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the weight of command, "we have confirmed that an extraterrestrial civilization is broadcasting a distress signal. Our analysis suggests they are under attack by another alien force." The room erupted in murmurs and whispered conversations. Hayes raised her hand for silence. "The signal includes technical data about their attackers, energy weapon signatures, ship configurations, tactical patterns. It's almost as if they're not just asking for help, they're providing intelligence about their enemies." Dr. Chen, who had been quiet since making the initial discovery, finally spoke up. "What if it's a trap? What if this is some kind of test, or worse, bait, to lure us into revealing our capabilities?" Admiral Jackson Foster, head of Space Command, leaned forward. "Dr. Chen raises a valid concern. But I've been studying these tactical patterns for the past 4 hours. The attacking force's behavior is consistent with a military operation. They're systematically destroying infrastructure, communication arrays, population centers. This isn't a test, it's genocide." President Maria Gonzalez, who had been listening quietly from her secure video link, finally addressed the room. "What are our options, General Hayes?" Hayes gestured to the tactical display. "Madam President, traditionally we would say we have no options. 47 light years is beyond our current technological capabilities. Our fastest ships would take over 200 years to reach that system." The president's expression remained neutral. "You said, traditionally, General. I take it that's changed?" Admiral Foster stood up, his chest swelling with what looked suspiciously like pride. "Madam President, 3 months ago, the Prometheus project achieved a breakthrough. We now have operational faster-than-light capability." The room fell silent. The Prometheus project had been humanity's most classified military program, a theoretical attempt to develop FTL travel based on experimental physics, and captured alien technology from previous smaller encounters that had been kept secret from the public. "How fast?" the president asked quietly. "Fast enough to reach the alien system in approximately 18 hours, Foster replied. "We have a prototype fleet of 12 ships. They're not large, but they're fast, and they're armed with the most advanced weapons humanity has ever created." Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her linguistic analysis. "Madam President, I've been trying to decode more of their message. They're not just calling for help, they're warning us. The species attacking them, they call them the Devourers in our translation. And according to the aliens sending the distress call, the Devourers don't stop. They consume entire worlds, then move on to the next system." She paused, her face grave. "The mathematical models included in their message suggest that if the Devourers finish with their system, Earth is next on their expansion route." President Gonzalez closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of the decision clearly visible on her face. When she opened them again, her expression was steel. "Admiral Foster, how soon can your fleet be ready to deploy?" 6 hours, Madam President. The ships are already fueled and armed. We just need to input the navigation coordinates. Dr. Vasquez, can we send a response to the aliens? Let them know help is coming? Elena nodded quickly. I've already prepared a basic mathematical response. It should be simple enough for them to understand, regardless of their specific language structure. The president stood up, even though she was only visible on screen. Then here's what we're going to do. We're going to respond to that distress call. We're going to save an entire alien civilization, and we're going to show these devourers that humanity does not tolerate genocide in our galaxy. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Admiral Foster, you have authorization to deploy the fleet. Dr. Vasquez, send the response. Everyone else, this operation is classified at the highest levels. We're about to announce to the universe that humanity has arrived, and we're not going quietly into the night. Captain Maria Santos had commanded starships for 15 years, but she had never commanded anything like this. The UES Defiance was humanity's first true warship designed for interstellar combat. And as she stood on the bridge watching the stars streak past at faster-than-light speeds, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. "Jump completion in 3 minutes, Captain," announced Lieutenant Commander Zhang from the navigation station. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces lit by the glow of their instruments. Santos nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the disposition of the human fleet. 12 ships total, divided into 3 squadrons. Her own command squadron included the heavy cruisers Defiance, Vengeance, and Retribution. The second squadron consisted of 4 destroyer-class ships designed for speed and precision strikes. The third squadron was composed of 5 support vessels carrying medical supplies, technical equipment, and, if things went very badly, rescue pods. Communications. Any further signals from the alien distress call? Ensign Rodriguez looked up from his station, his expression grim. Signal strength has decreased by another 12% since we entered FTL, Captain. At this rate, we'll lose contact completely within the next 8 hours. Santos felt her jaw tighten. The aliens were running out of time, and there was nothing she could do to make the ship go faster. The laws of physics were absolute, even with humanity's newfound FTL technology. "Captain," called out Dr. Elizabeth Harper from her position at the science station. Dr. Harper was not military. She was a xenobiologist who had volunteered for the mission despite having no space combat experience. "I've been analyzing the technical data included in the alien transmissions. I think I understand what we're going to find when we arrive." Santos turned to give the scientist her full attention. "Go ahead, Doctor." Harper manipulated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional representation of the alien star system. "The attacking force? These devourers, they're not just conquering the alien homeworld, they're strip mining it." She highlighted several objects moving in orbit around the third planet. "These energy signatures match the profiles of massive industrial ships. They're literally consuming the planet's resources and converting them into more ships, more weapons, more soldiers." Commander Williams, Santos's executive officer, leaned forward. "How many ships are we looking at, Doctor?" "Based on the energy patterns and the rate of resource consumption, I estimate between 50 and 70 Devourer vessels currently in the system. But, Captain, that's not the worst part." Santos raised an eyebrow. "There's a worst part?" Harper nodded grimly. "The mathematical models included in the alien distress call suggest that the Devourers have been following this pattern for centuries. They arrive at a system, overwhelm the local defenses, consume all available resources, then construct a larger fleet and move on to the next target." She paused, highlighting a trajectory that led directly from the alien system toward Earth. "Based on their expansion pattern, they'll reach human space within 5 years, and by then their fleet will be twice the size it is now." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Santos felt the full implications of Dr. Harper's analysis settling over her like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was potentially humanity's first, and possibly last, chance to stop an existential threat to their entire species. 1 minute to jump completion," announced Lieutenant Commander Zhang. Santos activated the ship's intercom. "All hands. This is the captain. We are about to enter the Kepler 442 system, where we will engage a hostile alien force in defense of another alien civilization. This is humanity's first interstellar military operation, and the stakes could not be higher. Remember your training, trust your shipmates, and show these devourers what human determination looks like. Santos out. The stars suddenly snapped back into focus as the Defiance dropped out of FTL drive. Immediately, the bridge erupted into controlled chaos as sensors came online and began feeding data to the tactical computers. "Contact! Multiple contacts!" shouted Ensign Davis from the sensor station. "I'm reading 73 vessels in system designation unknown. They're concentrated around the third planet." "Are they the Devourers or the aliens?" Santos demanded. Davis worked furiously at his console. "Both, Captain. I'm detecting the energy signatures Dr. Harper identified as Devourer strip mining operations. But there are also smaller vessels that match the technical specifications from the distress signal. The aliens are still fighting." Commander Williams pulled up the tactical display on the main screen. What they saw made several crew members gasp audibly. The third planet was surrounded by a massive ring of industrial ships, each one several kilometers long. They were connected to the planet's surface by energy beams that were literally tearing chunks of matter from the crust and mantle, converting it into raw materials that were being processed into new ships in real time. But scattered around the planet's orbit were dozens of smaller alien vessels, darting in and out of the industrial complex like angry wasps, trying desperately to disrupt the Devourer operations. "My God," whispered Dr. Harper. "They've been fighting this battle for weeks, maybe months. Look at the debris fields." She was right. The space around the planet was littered with the remains of destroyed ships, both alien and Devourer. But for every Devourer ship that had been destroyed, there were at least 5 alien wrecks. "Captain," called out Communications Ensign Rodriguez, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's on the same frequency as the original distress call, but much stronger now that we're in system." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled to life, and what emerged was unlike anything any human had ever heard before. It was clearly an alien language, but there was something unmistakably emotional about it. Urgency, desperation, and something that sounded almost like hope. Dr. Harper was already working on translation protocols. "Captain, based on the mathematical structure of their original distress call, I should be able to decode at least the basic meaning." Santos nodded. "Do it." After several minutes, Harper looked up with tears in her eyes. "Captain, they're saying the prophecy keepers have arrived. The star-touched ones come as promised. Fight together, die together, live together." "Prophecy?" Commander Williams frowned. "What prophecy?" "I don't know," Harper admitted. "But clearly they've been expecting someone to come help them." "Captain," interrupted Davis from sensors, "the Devourer ships are reacting to our presence. The industrial vessels are maintaining position, but I'm detecting 42 combat vessels breaking away from the main fleet and heading in our direction." Santos felt her pulse quicken. This was it. Humanity's first space battle. "Fleet communications, open channel to all vessels." "Channel open, Captain." "All ships, this is Captain Santos of the Defiance. We are about to engage a hostile force in defense of an alien civilization. Remember, we are not just representing Earth today. We are representing the principle that civilized beings do not stand by while genocide is committed. All squadrons take attack formation. Target the approaching combat vessels. Let's show them what human ingenuity can do." The human fleet spread out into attack formation, and for the first time, the bridge crew got a good look at what they were facing. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in human experience. They looked more grown than built, with organic curves and what appeared to be living tissue covering metallic frameworks. "Those aren't machines," Dr. Harper breathed. "They're biomechanical hybrids, part ship, part creature." "Can we kill them?" Santos asked bluntly. Harper studied the sensor readings. "I believe so, Captain. They appear to have centralized power systems and control nodes, just like any other spacecraft." "Then we kill them," Santos said simply. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space. Human pulse cannons and missile systems met alien bioenergy weapons and living projectiles that seemed to home in on their targets with predatory intelligence. The Defiance shuddered as a Devourer energy blast struck her shields. "Shield strength down to 87%, reported the tactical officer. "Return fire all batteries," Santos ordered. The human weapons struck the Devourer vessel amidships, and something remarkable happened. The biomechanical ship screamed, an actual audible scream that transmitted through space on multiple frequencies. Then it began to dissolve, its living components dying and its mechanical systems shutting down. "Direct hit on Target 1, reported Tactical. "Enemy vessel appears to be dying." Across the battle space, the pattern repeated. Human weapons seemed to be uniquely effective against the biomechanical Devourer ships. Where the alien defenders had been forced to concentrate multiple hits to destroy a single enemy vessel, human weapons were achieving kills with single, well-placed shots. "Captain," Dr. Harper called out excitedly, "I think I understand why our weapons are so effective. The Devourers have evolved to fight against energy-based weapons and biomechanical systems. But our weapons are purely technological. They're a type of attack the Devourers have never encountered before." Santos felt a grim smile cross her face. "Then let's make sure they never forget this encounter." But even as the human fleet was proving devastatingly effective against individual Devourer ships, the math was still against them. 12 human ships against 42 alien attackers was long odds by any measure. That's when the local alien defenders joined the battle. What had been a desperate holding action suddenly became a coordinated assault. The alien ships, freed from the impossible task of fighting alone, began working in conjunction with the human fleet. Their energy weapons, while less effective against Devourer ships than human technology, were perfect for disabling enemy sensors and guidance systems, allowing human missiles to strike with even greater precision. "Captain, we're receiving tactical data from the alien vessels," reported communications. "They're sharing target priority lists, energy shield frequencies, even structural weak points on the Devourer ships." Santos felt a surge of admiration for their alien allies. Even in their darkest hour, they were thinking tactically, sharing information that would help both fleets survive. "All ships, integrate alien tactical data into targeting systems. Let's coordinate this assault." The battle turned into a rout. Devourer ships that had dominated the alien defenders for months were suddenly being systematically destroyed by the combined human-alien fleet. But Santos knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, the massive industrial ships that were strip mining the alien homeworld. Those vessels were larger, more heavily defended, and represented the true threat to galactic civilization. "Dr. Harper," Santos called out. "Analysis of the industrial vessels. How do we stop them?" Harper worked frantically at her console. "Captain, these aren't just ships. They're ecosystems. Each one contains millions of Devourer organisms working in perfect coordination. Destroying them conventionally would require massive amounts of firepower." "Then how do we stop them?" Harper looked up, her face pale but determined. "We don't destroy them, Captain. We poison them. I'm detecting what appears to be a central nervous system linking all the organisms in each ship. If we could introduce a disruptive signal into that system..." Santos felt pieces of a plan falling into place. "A computer virus, but for biological systems." "Exactly, and I think I know how to create one. But we'll need to get close, very close." Santos looked at the tactical display, calculating the odds of survival for such a mission. Then she thought about Earth, about humanity's future, about the alien civilization they had come to save. "Commander Williams, prepare boarding parties. Dr. Harper, you have 1 hour to develop your biological virus. All ships, this is Captain Santos. We're going in." The boarding shuttle Intrepid screamed through space toward the massive Devourer industrial ship, its hull glowing from the heat of barely deflected energy blasts. Inside, Captain Santos checked her weapon one final time, while Dr. Harper made last-minute adjustments to the biological virus she had engineered in record time. 60 seconds to docking, announced the pilot, Lieutenant Torres, her voice steady despite the fact that they were flying directly into the most dangerous environment any human had ever encountered. Santos looked around at her boarding team. 12 Marines, 4 engineers, and 1 very determined xenobiologist who had never held a weapon in anger before today. They were about to attempt something that would either save 2 civilizations or get them all killed in the most spectacular fashion possible. "Remember the plan?" Santos addressed her team through the comm system. "We get in, we find the central nervous system node that Dr. Harper identified, we upload the virus, and we get out. Simple, clean, efficient." Sergeant Major Rodriguez, the team's senior Marine, snorted. "Captain, with respect, nothing about boarding a living alien warship the size of Manhattan is simple, clean, or efficient." Santos couldn't help but smile. "Fair point, Sergeant Major. Then let's make it memorable." The shuttle struck the Devourer ship's hull with a sound that was part mechanical impact and part organic scream. The cutting charges deployed immediately, burning through biomechanical armor that twisted and writhed as it was destroyed. "Breach successful," Torres reported. "But Captain, the hull is trying to heal itself. You've got maybe 15 minutes before it seals us in." Santos was already moving, leading her team through the smoking hole in the hull and into the interior of the Devourer ship. What they found inside defied human comprehension. The corridors were not corridors in any human sense. They were arteries, pulsing with bioelectric current, and lined with what looked like nervous tissue. The walls breathed. The floor had a heartbeat, and everywhere, skittering creatures the size of house cats moved with purpose, tending to the ship's organic systems like white blood cells in a living organism. "My God," whispered Dr. Harper, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. "This isn't a ship. It's a creature, a single massive spacefaring organism." One of the small maintenance creatures noticed the human intrusion and let out a piercing shriek. Immediately, the ship around them began to respond. The walls contracted, trying to crush the invaders. Acid began seeping from the ceiling, and in the distance, they could hear something much larger moving toward them. "Move! Move! Move!" Santos shouted, leading her team deeper into the ship. According to Dr. Harper's analysis, the central nervous system node should be located near what humans would consider the bridge, the creature's brain center. They fought their way through corridors that actively tried to kill them. Marines used plasma torches to cut through walls that grew shut behind them. Engineers deployed temporary atmospheric processors to counteract the poisonous gases the ship was releasing, and Dr. Harper led them ever deeper, following bioelectric patterns that only she could interpret. "There!" she called out, pointing to a massive chamber ahead of them. "That's it! The central node!" What they found in the chamber was both beautiful and terrifying. A massive, crystalline structure pulsed with internal light, connected to the ship's walls by thousands of neural pathways. It was clearly the brain of the creature, and it was aware of their presence. The chamber filled with a sound that was part communication, part warning, and part challenge. The ship's immune system responded instantly. Creatures the size of grizzly bears began pouring into the chamber from hidden openings, their razor-sharp claws and acidic saliva making their intentions clear. "Form a perimeter," Santos ordered. "Protect Dr. Harper while she uploads the virus." The battle was unlike anything in human military history. Marines fought creatures that belonged in a nightmare, using every weapon and technique they had ever learned. The air filled with the sound of pulse rifles, the screams of alien creatures, and the steady determined cursing of human soldiers who had no intention of dying 47 light years from home. Dr. Harper worked frantically at her portable computer, trying to establish an interface with the alien neural network. "I need more time," she called out over the sound of battle. "How much more time?" Santos demanded, using her sidearm to drop a creature that had gotten past the marine perimeter. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Santos looked around the chamber. Her Marines were holding, but barely. They had lost 2 soldiers already, and their ammunition was running low. In the distance, she could hear more creatures approaching. That's when the cavalry arrived. The chamber suddenly filled with new sounds, energy weapons firing in precise, coordinated patterns. But these weren't human weapons. They were alien weapons, wielded by their new allies who had somehow managed to board the Devourer ship. 3 alien warriors moved into the chamber with fluid grace, their weapons cutting down the ship's defenders with deadly efficiency. For the first time, Santos got a good look at the species they had come to save. They were tall, slender beings with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift color in response to their emotions. Their faces were elongated, with large eyes that held unmistakable intelligence and determination. And despite the obvious physical differences, there was something unmistakably familiar about the way they moved. The same purposeful coordination that Santos recognized in her own Marines. One of the aliens, apparently their leader, approached Santos and spoke in heavily accented but recognizable English. "You are the star-touched ones from the prophecy. We are honored to fight beside you." Santos blinked in surprise. "You speak our language?" "We have been listening to your radio transmissions for 50 of your years," the alien replied. "We learned your languages in preparation for this day." "Preparation for what day?" The alien's skin shifted to what Santos somehow knew was a shade of hope. The day when the star-touched ones would come to fulfill the prophecy. The day when those who fight the darkness would join with those who sing the light. Santos felt a chill run down her spine. "How did you know we would come?" "Because," the alien said simply, "it is what we would have done." Dr. Harper's voice cut through the philosophical discussion. "Got it. Interface established. Uploading the virus now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The crystalline structure in the center of the chamber began to pulse erratically. The neural pathways connecting it to the ship's walls started flickering like broken lights. And throughout the massive creature, they could hear something that sounded unmistakably like screaming. "It's working," Harper called out. "The virus is propagating through the entire nervous system. The ship is losing coordination." As if to prove her point, the chamber suddenly lurched to one side as the massive creature lost control of its flight systems. The attacking creatures in the chamber stopped their assault, confused and disoriented as the ship's central intelligence began to break down. "Time to go," Santos announced. "Everyone out. Now!" The combined human-alien team fought their way back through corridors that were now convulsing in biological death throes. The ship was dying around them, its immune system failing, its structural integrity compromising. They reached the boarding shuttle just as Lieutenant Torres was preparing to cut the docking clamps and abandon the mission. "Captain!" Torres called out in relief. "The whole ship is coming apart. We need to leave now." "Go! Go! Go!" The Intrepid launched away from the dying Devourer ship, just as the massive creature began its final convulsions. Through the shuttle's viewports, they watched as the virus Dr. Harper had created spread from ship to ship throughout the Devourer fleet. The biomechanical vessels that had seemed so invincible just hours before were now dissolving into component parts, their organic systems shutting down in cascade failure. "All ships! This is Captain Santos," she broadcast to the human fleet. "Mission accomplished. The Devourer industrial ships are neutralized. Repeat. Mission accomplished." The response from the fleet was immediate and enthusiastic. 12 human voices cheered over the comm channel, while in the background, They could hear similar celebrations from their alien allies. But the real celebration was taking place on the planet's surface. As the Devourer strip mining operation shut down and the massive industrial ships broke apart, the alien homeworld was free for the first time in months. Dr. Harper, monitoring the planetary communications, looked up with tears streaming down her face. "Captain, you need to hear this." She patched the planetary transmissions through the shuttle's speakers. What emerged was a sound unlike anything any human had ever heard. Millions of alien voices raised in what could only be described as a song of joy and gratitude. It was beautiful, complex, and unmistakably emotional. The alien warrior who had fought beside them in the chamber was listening with what Santos was beginning to recognize as deep emotion. His skin had shifted to a warm golden color. "They sing the song of homecoming," he explained. "It has not been heard on our world for many cycles. We had begun to believe it never would be again." Santos felt the weight of what they had accomplished settling over her. They hadn't just saved an alien civilization. They had preserved something irreplaceable, an entire species' song of hope. "What happens now?" she asked. The alien's skin shifted to a shade that Santos somehow understood meant deep thoughtfulness. "Now, we prepare. The Devourers are not gone. They have consumed many worlds, built many fleets. But for the first time in our recorded history, we know they can be defeated." He turned to look directly at Santos. "The prophecy speaks of a great alliance. The star-touched ones from the third planet of a yellow sun, and the singers of the homeworld songs. Together we will carry light to the dark places of the galaxy." Santos felt a smile cross her face. An alliance. I like the sound of that. The flight back to the Defiance gave Santos time to think about what they had achieved and what it meant for humanity's future. They had come to this system as rescuers, but they were leaving as something more, as proof that civilized species could work together to oppose those who would destroy everything in their path. When they docked with the Defiance, Santos was greeted by Commander Williams and the entire bridge crew. The celebration was subdued but heartfelt. They all understood that this had been about more than just military victory. "Captain," Williams reported, "we're receiving communications from Earth. They want a full report on the mission status." Santos nodded. "Patch me through to Admiral Foster." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, and Santos could see the tension around his eyes. "Captain Santos, report. Mission successful, Admiral. The alien distress call has been answered. The Devourer threat to this system has been eliminated. And we have established formal contact with a friendly alien civilization." Foster's expression shifted from tension to amazement to something that looked like pride. "Outstanding work, Captain. All ships, return to Earth immediately. The President wants to debrief the entire team personally." "Understood, Admiral. But before we leave, I have a recommendation." "Go ahead, Captain." Santos looked around the bridge at her crew, then at the alien warrior who had remained aboard as a liaison. "I recommend that we establish a permanent human presence in this system. These people, the Kethvar, they call themselves, they have offered to share their technology and knowledge with us. In return, they want our help in hunting down the remaining Devourer fleets." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Admiral, this isn't just about protecting Earth anymore. The galaxy is bigger than we imagined, and there are threats out there that make the Devourers look like a minor problem. But there are also allies, species that share our values and our determination to protect civilized life." Foster was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of history. "Captain, are you recommending that humanity take on the role of galactic protector?" Santos thought about the song of joy she had heard from the alien planet. She thought about the warriors who had fought beside her Marines. She thought about Dr. Harper's determination to save a species she had never met. "No, Admiral. I'm recommending that humanity take on the role of galactic partner. We're not alone out here, and we don't have to face the darkness alone." The transmission ended, and Santos turned to address her crew and their alien guest. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a feeling this is just the beginning. We came out here to answer a distress call, but we've discovered something much more important." She gestured toward the view screen, where the alien homeworld was beginning to show signs of recovery, its cities lighting up as power systems came back online. "We've discovered that the universe is full of people worth fighting for. And today, we proved that humanity is ready to do exactly that." The Defiance and her sister ships turned toward Earth, carrying news that would change human civilization forever. Behind them, in the Kepler 442 system, two species began the work of building something that had never existed before, a true interstellar alliance based on mutual respect, shared values, and the simple belief that civilized beings look out for each other. The SOS had reached Earth, and humanity had answered. But more than that, humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or colonizers, but as protectors, partners, and friends to all who opposed the darkness between the stars. In the depths of space, other distress calls were already making their way toward Earth. And in shipyards around the world, humanity was already beginning construction of new vessels, not just for exploration or defense, but for the most important mission any species could undertake: the mission of ensuring that no civilized world would ever have to face extinction alone. Radio telescope facility. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the response signal being transmitted back to the aliens. The message was simple, mathematical, universal. "Help is coming. Hold on." She just hoped they would arrive in time.